It is Friday, the 7th of March, 2025. My name is Pigeon Rose, and this is my song of the day. Today we're talking about an artist called Gaelynn Lee. Now, Gaelynn Lee is someone I discovered through NPR's Tiny Desk concerts, which I think is how most people discovered her. It was kind of her big break into the mainstream, although she's been involved in various projects before that and since. She's a violinist from Duluth, Minnesota, and she has a genetic condition called osteogenesis imperfecta, which it affects the development of bones and limbs. So she's quite small, her arms and legs don't move with the full range that one would have typically. So in order to play the violin, she kind of holds it, steadies it with her feet, and then plays it crossways like a cello. And she tends to use tape loops, not tape loops. That's a really old school way to look at it. What's it called? Loop pedals. She uses loop pedals to, provide a bass under what she's playing and then play a melody on top and sing as well. And due to her condition, she also has a very unique voice. And it all combines into a very interesting sound. Now, you'll find a lot of people commenting on her videos being like, oh, so inspiring, disabled people can do anything. And yeah, sure, but I'm not, it's one of those things where it's obviously impressive that she developed this technique, but it's so easy to go overboard with that kind of shit, because I don't think she wants to be inspiration porn. She just wants to be a good musician, you know what I mean? Now, she is also an activist for various things, including disability and disabled rights, but I'm just saying, I'm not going to be oh, it's so impressive that she does that all the time throughout this, although it is impressive. Now, we're going to talk about her song, Someday We'll Linger in the Sun, which is the first song she performed on the Tiny Desk concert. I'm going to be listening to the Tiny Desk concert version now. I would encourage you to do that also, but there are various other recordings of it, so I would recommend either watching the first song in the Tiny Desk concert or listening to the original single release, because that's the version that I'm. So let's go listen to it now and then come back in a few minutes and talk about it. And that was Someday We'll Linger in the Sun by Gaelynn Lee. Something I really love about that song that you can see in the Tiny Desk concert is how much she's feeling the music, because the way she's sitting, she kind of has to be very precise in her motion. So she's holding up the violin, she's playing the notes precisely. But there's a part where a gap between singing where she's not playing the violin, where she just kind of leans her head into the side of it, and it's not clear if she's steadying herself, but it looks like she's just kind of resting in that moment, and then towards the end, when it's just the violin solo, her eyes are closed, her mouth is slightly open, she looks like she's really feeling it. I just love that, because it's how I felt kind of watching it for the first time as well, where you take a bit when a song starts that you've never heard before. It takes you a bit to kind of get used to it, and this is a looping violin piece, so I'm kind of trying to get used to that concept. Then she starts singing and I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. And then she gets to the "and I love you," and I immediately was in. I was like, I love this. This is so good. And then I think the bridge, when she hits the high note in the bridge, was when I fully was, I don't remember if I cried the first time. I might have, I think I did, but I was certainly emotional at that point. And then the violin solo at the end is the icing on the cake. So as I've mentioned, this week is my spring week. I'm talking about this song because, it's called Someday We'll Linger in the Sun, which just makes me think of looking forward to the summer. Now, it's not really about that. It's about, well, it could be about a lot of things, but it's about love, but Someday We'll Linger in the Sun could be seen as someday we'll be in nicer climes, we'll be able to enjoy the sun. It might be referring to heaven. Someday we'll linger in the sun, someday we'll be able to be beside each other in the sky, you know what I mean? But the theme of it being about kind of not letting these moments slip away very much gives me a spring theme idea, of renewal and things having died and being born again, So let's go through the lyrics here, shall we? Our love's a complex vintage wine, all rotted leaves and lemon rind. I spit you out, but now you're mine. We bit the fruit, it seemed a lie. I'll never know which way was right. Now side by side we face the night, and I love you, and I love you. So, our love's a complex vintage wine, all rotted leaves and lemon rind. It's a really interesting opening lyric. A complex vintage wine, you would assume she's saying oh, it's rich and flavorful, and I don't know how to say vintage other than vintage, but the use of the word vintage makes you think it's kind of their love is kind of part of a long tradition, if that makes sense. But then she says all rotted leaves and lemon rind. That makes it sound very bitter and bad, but I think she's just leaning into the complexity. Like it's all these weird things that would be maybe bad on their own, but they come together to form this perfect thing, like their love, right? I spit you out, but now you're mine makes it sound like it is bitter and she doesn't like it. But it also sounds like, I spit you out, but now you're mine is like, I had this initial reaction, but I can never let go of you now. We bit the fruit, it seemed a lie, presumably referring to Adam and Eve biting the apple, quote unquote, the fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. We bit the fruit, it seemed a lie, like they got this knowledge of good and evil, and it seemed like it wouldn't be true. I'll never know which way was right. I mean, it's the knowledge of good and evil, and so she's saying, like, it doesn't seem true that we can tell good and evil apart because I can't tell which way was right. Does that make sense? So it feels like it could be talking about their relationship, it could be talking about humanity as a whole. Now, side by side, we face the night. Again, makes it sound like facing death, but it also could just be talking about facing negative and stressful situations. We face the night together, like we can get through these bad times. And I love you, and I love you. I love a song that just has like a chorus that's just one line repeated, and I love you. We walked the pier and back again. It was the most scared I have ever been. You held my hand until the end, and I love you, and I love you. So we walked the pier and back again. That just makes it sound like going for a walk on a normal, like a normal date thing, like walking up and down a pier. But, she has had to use wheelchairs since she was 2.5. So when she says it was the most scared I've ever been, it could be referring to the idea that like he was like helping her walk and she was very scared by it. You held my hand until the end, you know what I mean? But it also could just be referring to the idea that he walked alongside with her in her wheelchair and he's holding her hand, and she's not scared because she's out of her wheelchair. She's scared because it's a new relationship or something like that, right? I think it can tie into both because it does have this general bigger feeling to it, not just about her. And I love you, and I love you. And then don't tell me we've got time, the subtle thief of life. It slips away when we pay no mind. We pulled the weeds out until the dawn, nearly too tired to carry on. Someday we'll linger in the sun, and I love you, and I love you. So that bit there, don't tell me we've got time, the subtle thief of life. It slips away when we pay no mind. Very simple message. It's come up in songs I've talked about before. Don't let life slip away from you because it'll be over, Don't tell me we've got time, the subtle thief of life. Life slips away when you're not paying attention. It slips away when we pay no mind. Your life is always happening, and you need to be paying attention to it and making the best of every day and living life to the fullest, because otherwise your life will run out and what have you done, right? And then we pulled the weeds out until the dawn, nearly too tired to carry on. Someday we'll linger in the sun. So like I said, this could be literal. This could be talking about pulling weeds in the garden, being tired, and then thinking about how when they pull the weeds out, they'll be able to hang out in the sun. But also it could be referring to death. Like I said, it could be talking about being together in heaven, but it also could just be talking about going towards better times, because I mentioned the first verse, now side by side we face the night. So this is the inverse. It's like we're in the night now, someday we'll linger in the sun, right? Because dawn is coming. And I love you, and I love you. It's a really interesting song to me because it's like the imagery is grandiose but also kind of relatable, and it's like it's kind of vague, but also it has a very specific feeling to it, and I love it a lot. I really need to listen more Gaelynn. I've only listened to I think she does 3 songs in the Tiny Desk concert. It's usually what people do. 4 songs, actually. I've only listened to the Tiny Desk concert. I need to listen to her stuff properly other than that. But yes, anyway, thank you so much for listening. Please hit like, hit subscribe, leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think. Tell other people about this show. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you tomorrow.
Break it down.
God, what have you done? You're a pink pony girl, and you dance at the club, oh mama.